Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in on this afternoon. I'm excited to be going live on today, doing a virtual show where we will discuss several issues, several topics, and allow some beautiful ladies who are here with me to just have a platform to have a conversation. Amen. I want to welcome here with me Lady Latasha Heron Bruff, here to my left, your right. I want to also welcome Lady Shantae Jones, here to my right. Here behind me to my left, I have the beautiful Darian Elliott. And here to my right, in the back of me here, I have the beautiful Chandrea Fincher. So we're just gonna have a conversation about some things, ladies. There were some things that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about business. I wanted to talk about self-care. I wanted to talk about recovering from a broken place. I wanted to be able to give some nuggets and some. I know we can't give any 12-step, no 12-step advice, but we can talk from experience on how we got through a hurt place, a broken place, how we dealt with recovering from what happened in our past experiences, and how we made fruit come from a broken place or a bad place, so we thought. But I just feel like some experiences just till the ground to prepare you to grow the fruit that has already been destined for your life. So one question that I wanted to address is, what is the one thing you vowed to yourself that you would never allow back in after you've gotten to a place of being whole? Anybody want to talk about that? Lady Chandrea, what's the one thing that you vowed that you would never allow back in after you have, gotten to a place of wholeness?
One thing that first of all, I'm glad to be here. Hello to everyone that is watching. One thing that I vowed to never allow to enter my life ever again when I was in a broken place was disrespect. We tend to get very comfortable with disrespect. We sometimes feel like we may even deserve the disrespect, and we will become very complacent and accept the disrespect, knowing that we're worth so much more. And a lot of times the root of that problem is we don't even know what we're worth. And so we will allow people to discount who we really are, and then you'll find yourself accepting the bare minimum. I like to call it you'll accept crumbs when you really deserve a full loaf of bread.
Wow, that was good. That's interesting that you said disrespect, because I was listening to a guy talk, and he was talking with a friend on the video, and he was saying that men are never taught to value the relationship with a female. They're always taught to be in a relationship because they'll do what you ask them to do. Or if you be nice to her, she'll get you this. It's always, what can I get out of her for her to do it for me, versus figuring out what type of jewel she is. And he said this phrase. He said, we tend to disrespect before we try to value the relationship. We'll accept that disrespect first. He can do whatever he wants, and you'll forgive him, and then there you go. Well, we got to make this right, but we forget that he disrespected us first.
I think that is so true what you're saying. I think a lot of us, and I'm going to take this down while I'm talking. I think sometimes as women, we are quick to associate our happiness in somebody else. We want somebody. We're depending on someone else to make us happy or to fulfill those pieces of us. And instead of determining how do we create our own happiness and make our own selves whole, we rely on someone else for that. So, there are a lot of men, we talk about broken women, there are a lot of broken men who get into relationships with a broken woman, and there are two broken people together. that don't know how to function together. So it's interesting that you say that I think a lot of us probably have dealt with that in some parts of our life. And so you ask the question, what is something you wouldn't let in, is being able to now from this place recognize people who are not moving in the same direction as me. Somebody who is not filled with the same motivation, somebody who does not have a love for God, who is not following God, cannot be in my circle, because, that's going to require me to somehow back away from the things that I believe and I know that I deserve. So really protecting who comes in that circle of influence in my life, and really being protective about that.
Right. What comes to mind with the statement you just made was compromise. Well, we will compromise the company, which causes us to compromise our space.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Now my space has been compromised. That's the word they use when they're doing things in a scientific lab, that when they're trying to keep everything sterile and clean, so the results that they're looking for can be precise. So when something other than what is needed in that space enters it, the first word they use is something has compromised this space. And which means what? The results I'm looking for are going to be distorted. It's going to be twisted. It's not going to be exactly what I'm looking for, because now my space has been compromised.
That's right.
That's good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel like after you, especially women of, as my mom liked to say, of a particular age, which basically means any woman over 30. I think that in your 20s, you, especially if we've been in relationships, whether that's, committed relationships or a marriage, we've been taught so much by the church specifically that women ultimately lose your identity in marriage, and it only falls under your husband's umbrella. And so for me, after coming out of a space where I feel like that's what was happening with me, is that I kind of lost who I was, or not necessarily lost who I was. I didn't even have a chance to figure out who I was, because I was in this relationship from a kid up until, recently. I would always recognize from that point on manipulation. And the thing is, we haven't been taught what for real manipulation is, because now the world has it presented to us that if a man does literally the bare minimum, that means he cares. So, we're in this pop culture phenomenon right now, social media. And so memes are a thing, and you see a lot of people sharing memes that they agree with. Like, if the thought comes up, they agree with it. So I saw this meme some years ago that said, if your man, if you've been with your man all day and you have plans to go out with your girlfriends at, let's say, 10 o'clock at night, he sees you getting dressed, he sees you doing your hair, putting your makeup on, and you leave with your friends. 45 minutes later, if he texts you and says, babe, I miss you, I want you to come home, what would you do? And so many women was just like, girl, I'm leaving, I'm going home, blah, blah, blah. Let's stop, let's pause. Because the thing is, the consideration got to come both ways. Yes, we've been together all day. We've been together all day. You saw me getting dressed 9 times out of 10, if the relationship is correct. We've talked about me going out and hanging out with my friends. Right. So when I get dressed and I leave, and we have to think about like location and context and all that. We live in Dallas. If I've only been gone 45 minutes, I probably went 30 minutes up the road, right? So that means I've only been at this place 15 minutes before you done text me and said, babe, I miss you, I want you to come home. So then me, trying to be good, get up and go home, but then you turn around the next day and you gone the whole day. That little seed of manipulation grows into something else. Yes, but we call that care. We call that concern. And so I feel like now it's a thing of, for me, not necessarily things having to be 50-50, but they really have to be 100-100. Right. I will not accept, like, the things that you are supposed to do, you don't get awards for what you're supposed to do. So I don't applaud fish for swimming. I don't give my children, you know what I'm saying, exorbitant parties when they make good grades. That's your reasonable service.
I agree.
You're not paying no bills.
That's right.
You're not doing anything else. So I feel the same way when it comes down to relationships, when it comes down to friendships. If it's not going to be 100 on both ends, I refuse to let seeds of manipulation grow in any more of my relationships, because time is going by real quick. We just don't have the time. So I care about myself enough to say, I am going to protect, like she said, that space. But ultimately, this inner circle of trust, I'm the point in that circle.
That's right.
I got to protect me too. So
Yeah, and I agree. I like what you said, that care has to go both ways. And we tend to cancel out the reciprocated care. Because we love them, we want to pour all of what we are into them, and we just go along with the whole not being poured back into. Lady Shantae, you got it?
Well, I would think that the one thing that I would not go back on is knowing my self-worth and doubting myself, and that goes for relationships and just even my personal self-knowledge. Because if I know that I'm worth it, then I know I deserve the job. If I know that I'm worth it, I know I deserve a larger salary. If I know that I'm worth it and I don't doubt myself, then I know that in relationships there are certain things that should not occur. There are things that should occur. But I think it all goes back to knowing what I'm worth and not doubting myself for, let's just say, thinking anything other than. For example, in relationships, I've dreamed of, this beautiful day and everybody's going to, look at me and I'm going to be the bride, this, that, and the other. But there are things that need to take place that leads up to that. And even though I've dreamed of this day, literally my whole life, there are things that I'm not willing to accept just to get there. So knowing that, I deserve what I want, I deserve what I'm worth, it makes the path for me more clear, and it'll make, certain things that I may have allowed in the past, I'm not going to allow that anymore. And if that means that date doesn't happen tomorrow, or this relationship doesn't, manifest, I'm okay with that because I know my worth.
Right. Well, I heard all four of you say the word allow. Do you believe that that's learned behavior? Are we taught this? Are we coached into allowing this stuff to happen?
yes, absolutely. And the crazy thing is, me personally, just as a person, just as Dee Dee, words like allow, let, are triggers for me to lose my absolute mind in conversation. When it comes, if it's a man, if a man tells me, well, I allowed you, I let you go out with your friend. Wait, because look,
Who?
my mom stressed to me the fact that I was not grown when I was 5 and 6 years old. Like, you ain't grown, you can't. So when I actually became grown, I take it seriously being an adult, okay? Right. So anytime somebody is taking away my adult choices, that's a problem for me. The allowing is not only because again, church taught women a way that we are now having to unlearn. There were a whole lot of things that we saw that our mothers and grandmothers did that we take and say, to be a good wife, this is great to do. But a whole lot of it, no, we have to unlearn it in 2020 because relationships are not happening the way that they used to. And like she said, sometimes things in relationships won't have that perfect day happening tomorrow. Sometimes one of the reasons why I feel like women are getting married later and later now is because, number one, we realize what we don't need to accept, what we don't need to allow in order to be in a relationship. Because if we want to be honest, around 85-90% of us should have never been married in our 20s.
Correct.
We had no clue of what we were doing.
Correct.
So, but that's because we didn't know. We were kind of going along with like what culture had told us, and especially church culture. I can even pull it in even closer, especially Church of God in Christ culture. They tell you so much about like what a woman is supposed to do, and it's like they don't prepare you for like real world stuff. And if it is a real world issue, it's, well, just pray about it. He'll come around. And it's like, yeah, no, I am no longer taking to the Lord issues that I can fix right here, right here. I mean, because first natural and then spiritual to me makes sense. Now, I don't know, but yeah, we have been told that we're supposed to give all of this grace. And if you pay attention to reality and just the world period, Black women are afforded the least amount of grace. Exactly. Amongst everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
We are supposed to be the strongest.
Yes,
I was just reading a story the other day where this man who has been heralded as like one of the greatest physicians and scientists in the world used surgical, you know what I'm saying, processes on Black women with no anesthesia, because it's been said for so long that we're strong and we can take pain. Are y'all serious right now? No. So the thing is, it bleeds so much into society. It bleeds so much into our relationships between Black men and Black women. We are supposed to take every single thing that you throw, and nobody is supposed to stand up and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm done. I know we've been in this relationship 20 years. I'm out.
I think what you're saying is spot on. You know, I'm the mom of a 9-year-old, soon to be 10-year-old daughter. And, you know, I take my responsibility and my obligation as her mom so seriously, because I know that she's watching, and the things that I do and that I say, it creates a learned behavior in her. And so one of the things that you're talking about, we grow up to think that women should be submissive and should be demure and women should have a particular role or a place. And, you know, a lot of times we have to realize there's not really anything wrong with submission, but sometimes we're submitting to the wrong person, the wrong thing, the wrong job, the wrong boss. Good. So we're submitting to something that does not deserve our submission. That's right. So, you know, people are beating us over the head and teaching us that that's what we should do as women, but that's not always the right thing to do, right?
Listen, let me tell you something. Listen here, back here. Listen.
I told y'all I came locked and loaded.
That word submission. Let me tell you something. That word submission means so much more than what we have been taught that it actually means. Right. First of all, the word the positioning of the word in the scripture.
Okay, now.
The way it's positioned means it is a reaction to something. See that? See? Okay. See what? See? It is a reaction to something, because the first thing he says to the husband is what? Love your wife as I love the church. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then it says, wives, then submit to your husbands.
That's right.
Okay, so see this leads me to believe that someone has a misconstrued conception of what love is.
That's right.
Which means to tell me something, you don't know how to love me.
That's right.
You don't know how to bring that submission out of me. See, there's a way to do it, but we haven't been given the tools to do it. You just let those boys go over there and do whatever they like with no restriction. But then I got to get over here and sit and wait, be cute, comb your hair, sit. No, what is he doing? Why ain't nobody telling him he need to get his stuff to see?
Yes.
No, see,
but
y'all praying for me, because I don't got I'm not finna play with her.
But you know, I think what we're seeing today in 2020, we're seeing the results of generational trauma.
Yes. Right.
And it's showing up in our relationships. True. It's showing up in our ability to love ourselves. It's showing up in the workplace. And I think now we're just now getting a clear understanding as to what the problem is. And we're trying to, well, me personally, you know, we're trying to figure out how do we correct what has, been done wrong for so many years by so many people. And now black women in particular, enough is enough. And, like I said, I know my self-worth. I'm learning my self-worth, and it just goes back to the systemic, I don't want to say generational curses, but it goes back so far, and I think it stops here.
Right.
And, we might be seen as angry or bitter or upset. I just think that we're tired. And now we have to figure out how to undo, just as you said, all of those years of manipulation or, submitting to the wrong, thing that we should be submitting to. So we got a lot of work, to do once we recognize it, but we have to recognize it.
Right. You the one I'm going to right back there. You is what I'm going. You who I'm going to, because that word trauma. You see, we can't see we can't. You can't really deal with trauma until you go back to the root of what caused the trauma.
Yes.
And many of us go through life with this thing where we encourage and I pray about it. But sometimes having a strategy means I got to go to therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? It's nothing wrong. See, I think the misconception of it, of going to therapy or going to see a therapist, that we've been taught that it means that you're already crazy. When that's not really what it is. I'm trying to actually prevent myself
That's right.
from being mental right now. That's why I go talk to somebody. By the grace of God, Jesus died on the cross for my sins and he has saved me, yes. But that therapist is going to keep me from slitting your throat. I'm just saying. Am I right, Lady Chandra?
This is definitely true. So you said traumas. And I always share with people that, and hear me very well, you are as old as your deepest trauma.
Right.
That deep thing that happened to you, if you did not recover from it, that is how old you are. You can be 40, but if you had a traumatic experience at 14, if you have not fully recovered, you are 14. And so what happens to us is, us as women, okay, especially young women, we tend to put Band-Aids over bullet holes. You
Girl, let me turn around. Hold on.
get...
What you said?
We tend, let me set my phone over here. We tend to put Band-Aids over bullet holes. You have gotten shot.
My God.
And you going in the restroom and you getting a Band-Aid and put Neosporin on it and put it over the wound. Go get treated. You need to go to the trauma center.
Yes.
And these things that have happened to us, this false sense of submission and molestation and being abused verbally, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of this stuff that we've seen, endured, experienced, those are traumas. And we have to tend to the trauma. You cannot, I have 4 children, 3 are adults. Hallelujah. My daughter is 16. But listen, I'm glad that I had 3 sons first instead of 3 daughters and a son. I was in no shape to raise a child. I was a mother at 15. 9 months later, a mother at 16. I didn't even know. I was still hanging clothes out on the line in the projects. Raising a kid. And my mom, she did the best she could with what she knew. But she was still punishing me for something I really had no knowledge of what I did. I knew that I had sex and I knew that it was a human growing inside of me, but now the baby is here. So where does the love come from, Christians? So it was more of a punishment. That's your baby. You take him with you everywhere you go. I'm trying to take a bath. You put him in that seat and you leave the door open. It was still punishment. So it wasn't, come here, let me show you what you do. I got about cold milk. I'm glad, he crazy, but I'm glad he alive. Straight out the refrigerator, infamy. You get what I'm saying? Because no one had enough love to pull me in and teach me what I needed to do as a teenager to mother these children. And we, going back to the church, yes, I love God, love all of that. But the church has taught us so much, and this is a conversation for another day, but they punish you for what's produced from the act of fornication. But the sin is the sex.
Hush your mouth.
The sin is not the baby.
Hush your mouth.
It's the sex. So you get mad. You can't have a shower. You got to get out the choir. You got to stand up before the church and say, I'm sorry for getting pregnant. And I turned around and did it again.
And it ain't
Right.
both of us standing up.
And the daddy
listen.
does not have to
Listen.
get up.
Yeah.
You
Well,
He
get
is
up
yet
and-
over here beating all the drums, and I'm running.
Now your praise team gonna suffer because I'm not singing no more outro notes, so I don't know what y'all gonna sound like Sunday. Because total praise is about to be a mess because they got me sitting down.
Somebody say trauma.
Trauma.
Quit putting band-aids over these bullet holes. And we have, it's so true. The man never had to get
Never
up.
had to stand up.
You know, but we have to tend to these traumas because listen, if you don't tend to it, it's gonna get infected and it's gonna spread, okay, and it's never gonna heal, and then the skin on it is gonna kilo it up, and then everyone is gonna, now you won't even get to share what the scar is. People will see it because you didn't go get the trauma taken care of.
Listen.
Well, that's what's happening right now. We are living in a world right now that especially black folks, let's talk about black people, who have endured 400 years of trauma. Black people have endured years and years of trauma and damage, generations of this. And so one day, Malcolm X one time was coming out and a reporter came into his face and said, "Don't you feel that black people have progressed?" And he said something to kind of what you were saying. He said, if you stick a knife in somebody's back and you pull that knife out 6 inches, that's not progress. You stab somebody in the back, you pull the knife all the way out, that's not progress. It's only till you begin to heal the wound of that knife, where that knife has been, do people start to progress. And that's what's happening to us as a culture of women. We have been so traumatized for years and generations that we have not dealt with the trauma at hand, and we pass that same stuff along to the people that come after us. And that has to stop.
My therapist, because when I say I believe in talking to somebody every week, like I believe in it. But when I started going to therapy at the beginning of 2018, and I went because I should have went to therapy back in the day, but I was molested by my natural father at 13, and I thought that when my mom said at 13, she said, we're going down to the city of Arlington, we're going to press charges, and we went, we talked to a detective, they took my statement, everything. Soon as they started talking about jail time for him, of course I'm 13, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to be a part of him going to jail. So I begged and pleaded with my mom, please, 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 let's let this go away. I thought that I was doing well. I went on, I graduated from high school. You know, I had my 2 daughters before I turned 19, but still I was doing well. I got a job, I thought my life was going well. But what happened was, just like you said, the progress was not happening because this particular scar that I had on my life, it started to affect, because it was not dealt with, the whole keloid situation, it started to basically cover every relationship that I had. So me not taking care of my mental space after I got abused at 13 was what drove me into relationships that were not good for me. And so ultimately, when I got married at 23, I was already a damaged woman at that point anyway, but I was a damaged woman, mother of 2 small girls. And so as I matured in the relationship, my attitude was already sort of formed as to what I was gonna be when it came down to men and women, because a lot of girls, when they're abused, and especially abused by who's supposed to protect them, their father, you either go one or 2 ways. You're either gonna be real promiscuous on this side, or you're going to be so shut down, you're not gonna even recognize the shutdown that happened. So there was no way that me and my first husband was gonna work, because I did not respect no man at all. If you weren't my mom's dad, if you weren't my uncles on my mom's side, I didn't respect no man, period. So submitting never happening. It's never happening. So my therapist told me, she said, all of these years that you've dealt with, 20-something years of you dealing with life after abuse, you've basically made a house of dysfunction. You've made that house really pretty on the outside, but in the inside, things are just falling apart. They're rotting away. And I feel like that's exactly what's been happening with America. So now what's going on is the cutting of the keloid is starting to happen. And so the thing is, all of the contents of that particular scar is coming out. And the way that we're doing that is by education, but that's in all areas of our life. We're educating ourselves on how to be better women. We're educating ourselves on how to be better mothers, how to be able to communicate effectively to the man that you say you want to be with. Even in jobs, we are going into interviews saying, when they actually ask us for a salary request, we have the knowledge now to say, this is what I feel like I'm worth. And if you don't give it to me, I have no problem stepping back and saying, you know what, something else is coming along. So I feel like there's so much that's happening. There's an awakening going on all across the world.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just glad to be here to see it.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with that. I was just thinking over certain things in my mind as I was preparing for this day, and I had like a light to come on in my head, like this is really the season for the woman. It's now, I mean, it's so much that I've seen, even with the protests and the riots, I've seen more ladies opening up their mouths and standing, whereas before it was more men in the front lines. It was more men saying this is what needs to happen. And the crazy part about it is I believe that there is a sect of individuals that are really nervous about all of this. And I'm telling you, because when a woman begins to move forward in confidence in who she is, I promise you she is a dangerous force. Because one thing that happens in us, that when we give birth to something, we turn into something that has superhero powers or something. I don't know. Whatever it takes to make it happen, we're gonna make it happen. And we have for so long we have took the back. We stood back. We pushed other people and we said, support them, knowing within ourselves we're 9 months pregnant with a gift or with a business, with a plan, with a vision, but we'll push somebody else's before we push ours, before we ask for help to push ours. And so it's like 10 years that we're late.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're late. We're late with coming out. We're late with going forward. We're late with producing. And so I'm so excited for this particular season for me to be able to see more powerful women go forward, more powerful women speak out, more powerful women stop taking down. You know what I'm saying? You know, we grew up in that era where grandmother said, you better support that man.
Yeah.
You support that man. You fix his plate first. And you better get in there. You better make sure that house clean. You better make sure. But see, now there has to be a different breed of man, because now it's a different breed of woman. You see what I'm saying? Now it's no longer the man getting relaxed in the fact that Lady Shantae can do whatever I ask her to do. But now he's got to get up on his game, because he stands, you know what I'm saying? He stands the possibility of losing somebody that he really want to be with, all because he's intimidated by what she's bringing forward.
And
You see what I'm saying?
To piggyback off of what you're saying, if you are a woman in this season that has actually had that awakening, your desires for a man even changes.
Right.
You know, we want the man with the coins, and we gotta do this.
I'm
and
with
I
you
love
when
the
you're
man
right.
with the custom.
Listen.
I do. But when you are a woman that has been awakened, your desires change. You're asking God, make sure you send me someone that matches my energy.
Right.
Make sure he can handle the whole totality of who I am.
You know, it's not a competition. And a lot of times, so many people in marriages, they're competing rather than being companions.
Right.
You know, it's like, you're going to do what you do, I'm going to do what I do. Will Smith said something related to Jada Pinkett and something about her crying every day. And he said, I had to hold the conversation that I told her it was not my responsibility to make her happy. But she makes herself happy, I make myself happy, and then we share our happiness.
I like that.
But we shift that responsibility. You're not making me happy. Well, no, you shouldn't want that anyway because it's temporary. When things stop happening, you're not going to be happy.
And you know what? Even to that, when she, I think I saw that interview where she said something about, I love myself so much to the top that everybody else that I love outside of this is from the overflow. So the thing is, not only do we have to take responsibility we as women, we really need to take responsibility for everything about us from the top right hand to that means, because I don't know how far we're going in this, but that means everything. We cannot expect for a man to come into this situation. We're trying to direct him on how to please and how to satisfy us, and you don't know what in the world you even look like.
That's right.
Beneath everything that you put on for the day.
That's right.
So how in the world can you direct somebody to a destination if I need you to go there first?
Right.
So the thing is, when I started taking off just kind of the layers of, like you said, of fear, of shame, of saying, you know what, I had to stop this particular situation for me. I'm going to learn me from the bottom up. And there were so many things that I found out, oh my God, I don't even like this. Why was I doing this? I don't even like it. And before, the thing is, when she said, when we ask the Lord, when our desires change because we've awakened, I tell people all of the time, when I'm talking about my marriage, I was so specific in my request because I felt like, anybody that knows me, I describe stuff in a really weird way, but I just believe that if you're not specific with your prayers, God can be real petty and just be like, okay, she didn't tell me she wanted this, so I'm gonna just sing this, right? So like, the thing for me was, I never said what I wanted out of my mouth. I kept those desires in my heart. So I knew that I wanted a man that I felt was worthy of submitting to.
Yeah.
The thing was, it didn't matter what he did for a living.
Right.
It didn't matter if he made $150,000 a year. If he can just match my energy, this energy that don't nobody know that I got, because of the fact of dysfunction, fear of shame, people got an idea of me of, oh, she is a kept woman. She want to be kept. No, let me help you. I've worked since I was 16 years old, right? Like, I started off at Chuck E. Cheese the day after I turned 16. She will absolutely go and clock in, okay? So what I did was, after I turned 35, it was like, no, I gotta know me. Before I get into something else, I really have to know me. And I'm telling you, when you are specific with your bullet points, because your desires change, because it ain't nothing like submitting to who you.
And I know we beat them up about being submissive, but being submissive is really a good thing.
It's a blessing.
It really is, because it's like you're just relinquishing our responsibility. It's like he's the president, you the vice president. I'm telling you.
I'm gonna sit at this table with you.
I'm just saying,
but
he got to be going in the right direction. He has to have his head to the kingdom.
That's right.
You know, for you to be trying to see that type of stuff. That's what's attractive.
Right.
When you're following a man that's following after God, that's really pursuing God, it's definitely a submission ticket coming.
Right.
It's
on this ride. I'm on this ride right
Seriously. So it really is. But you know what has happened? We were taught just to do things just because. I remember my grandmother, would always cook in a certain pan.
Right.
And I was trying to find the pan.
Right.
Not knowing she was just using that pan for that because that's all she had.
Right.
If she had something else, she would have used it in the right. But because we're just learning, we're doing what we see. We're being copycats.
Right.
Okay? And I love my grandmama, God rest her soul, but she was just wrong with some things. My mother was wrong in some things. And it's okay. I'm not mad at you. I appreciate it. But now that you know, it's things that I have awakened to that now I get to teach my mama.
Right.
And she actually appreciates it. And I slide my little shade in there, girl, you know you told me. but okay, girl, come on. You know?
Yeah.
But it's a way, and it'll actually help you even build a better relationship. Because I was so upset with my mom for years. Because I was like, you had me to keep my brother and sister. I had 2 babies. I couldn't do anything, no prom. I don't know what none of that stuff was. You get what I'm saying? But I had to remember, like, girl, this was a purposeful destiny.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have to own it. Whatever your lot was, you have to really own that.
Yeah.
You know, take responsibility. Like, girl, get up.
Yeah.
That's my thing that I reference to in the scripture. Girl, get up. Okay, daughter, arise. You been there long enough. You have to be bold enough to tell your homegirls that.
Yes.
When you see them walking in that foolishness and posting crazy stuff and going live, you have to call them, girl, get up and get out. Get out.
Get out.
Come out, whatever that is that you're in, that mind frame, change your mind.
Yeah, right.
When you change your mind, you're going to change your life. I promise you. I promise you.
I promise.
And it's funny you say to be very specific with.
Got to.
Well, I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what, God, forget what I asked for. You don't have to be 6'5" and bald head with a beard. Just give me who you have for me.
No, in real life, you really have to say,
You gotta say, sis.
because you know I don't know what I really know and what I really want.
Listen.
I need you to send me who you want for me.
That's the key.
He 5'9".
Right. Well, I'm 5'4", so
You
if
can make it work. I don't.
That's what you taller than me. But you know, I had to kind of revamp because, you know, just something about a bald head with a beard. But that might not be what God has for me. Now, for me, it's what that is.
Don't it sound like she was describing? I'm sorry. You're describing a musician. Stay away.
Help us, sis. Help us, sis.
If he played the freaking triangle,
You better run.
Lord,
You better cash it in. You better cash it in, sis.
I'm married to a musician right now.
Listen.
Y'all. Don't listen to me with your ass, because clearly that's what I
Clearly. Clearly that's the road you on, sis. I'm sorry, clearly. And you don't, folks in the road, God, I'll take this way. I'll take this way. I will. Listen, let me tell y'all something about, listen, when you're talking to God, you've got to talk out of your wholeness. You can't talk out of your brokenness. You start talking to God out of your brokenness, He gonna build a man as according to your brokenness. And you're gonna be looking like, well, where you come from? Well, sis, your broken energy attracted him. And see, sometimes, Didi, we'll pray for something, but we will I guess, be curious about another thing. And you looking like, God said, well, I'm confused because you asked what you asked for, but you want to stick your finger in that over that. No, that ain't what you asked for. That's not what you asked for. It's like somebody going to the doctor being diagnosed with lactose intolerance. But every week you coming back to the doctor, something wrong with me. No, I told you to stop eating stuff with See, we always want what we know we're not supposed to have.
Right.
And it's coming out of that broken place.
That's right.
Yeah, we want that. We want that.
And that's why we have to heal what is broken. We have to recognize, and when you know you know, I know what's broken in me. I know what's been fixed too. So once it's been fixed, I'm not trying to go back to, you know, being broke. So moving on, you heal and you grow and you don't look back.
I want to shift it a little bit. I have several ladies in here that pretty much, are CEO or founders or visionaries to their own business. And with learning ourselves and going through different traumas, how did you deal with the failures in your life? I mean, I don't know if you've dealt with any at all, but I'm saying if you have, how did you recover from that? Because sometimes that's really what sticks with us, that I'm not, this has failed 10 times, I'm gonna try something new. You know what I'm saying? When in all actuality, one of the richest people that I know, Bill Gates and others, they said that they failed several times. Tyler Perry. They said he was homeless and tried the same plays that we are looking at now, then, and they didn't do anything. So how do you deal with the failure? And if you have dealt with failure, how did you recover from that?
Well, I've dealt with failure career-wise. When I was in school, I wanted to be a therapist. And I said, okay, you know what, I'm working on me, and I want to help other people work on themselves. So I graduated with my degree, and then I took the state test. Failed it. The passing score was 128. I made a 126. I said, okay, well, that's just 2 points away, Shantae. Do it again. I did that 7 times.
Wow.
And each time I failed that test, I was only shy 2 points, 5 points, 3 points. So every time I took the test, the passing score changed. I said, okay, well, is it because I'm black? Let me call, let them, I'm gonna let them hear a piece of my mind, because I just felt like it was so wrong, and every time you take the test, you have to pay the state X amount of hundreds of dollars. So I felt like a failure. So I said, okay, well, I'll become a teacher. Don't worry about it. I'll become a teacher. So I started teaching, never to be a teacher, but to be a counselor. I said, okay, well, I got comfortable in being a teacher, and I said, well, this is not really what I'm supposed to do. I love it. Shout out to one of my parents in the audience. I loved it, but it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So, 10 years ago, and it's funny that you said 10 years. 10 years ago was the last time that I took that marriage and family therapy test. So I said, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this test again. But then there was a shift in the way that I get to that point. So I had to go see a counselor because, things in my world were just kind of crumbling. And the counselor said, well, why don't you take this test? And I said, well, I didn't even think I was, equipped or prepared to take that test. So again, knowing my self-worth and having less self-doubt, I said, you know what else do I have to lose? I'm going to take the test. Took the test, and I was like, Jesus, just let me pass. If the passing score is 100, I'm good with a 100. So I took the test, and I prayed, and, the church was praying. Shout out to my pastor, Pastor Curvin Leitner, and First Lady Terry Leitner.
But the intercessors
it was hard because my confidence was low, and I made it look good because nobody really knew how I felt about it. Nobody. So I took the test, and actually this past March, took the test March 9th, and I said, well, let me make sure, before I just go take a test, Jesus, what day you want me to take it? I took the test. I was just that serious about it. They said, well, put God first. Well, okay, Jesus, you click on it, and I promise you, I'll just make myself available. But when I took the test, I think the passing score may have been 140, and I made like a 160. So not only did I pass the test, but I passed it with flying colors. But it took 10 years for me to get to that point. And I could have said, you know what, Jesus, my bad. I won't ask anything else, about counseling and, therapy. I'm good with this. But I didn't give up. Even though I wanted to, and I actually did, I went back to it. So confidence boosted, and I'm like, well, God is a way maker, and truth be told, I didn't have to pay for the test.
Wow.
They didn't ask me for a dime.
Wow.
So I said, well, it's something really to it when you live for God, or try your best to live for God, or put God in the forefront of what your desire is, and kind of let Him match up the right path.
Right.
But again, 7 tests failed, and I mean failed it real good, but I didn't give up. So I would encourage anybody or everybody, consult God. And if you're on the right path, He'll make that way. But, I was busy trying to do it on my own. And every time I did, I failed. Literally.
Make sis up here talk.
Sis up here.
Okay. So, I have experienced failure before, and sometimes the worst failure are the ones that cut you the deepest, are the ones that you experience in public.
Right.
Not the private failures that people don't know about, but the ones that are very on public display. And not Mr. Bruff now, who I am married to and have been for 11 years, but prior to my relationship with my husband, I was in a very long-term relationship, and we were going to get married. But as things began to get closer and closer, I picked out a dress, we've had, saved the dates out, everything is rolling. This is gonna be this huge thing. But I was waking up every morning at the same time every morning with just something in the pit of my stomach that said, this is not right.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't understand what it was. And every morning I'd wake up at like 3:17 every morning,
Oh,
saying,
wow.
and couldn't go back to sleep. And so one day, my dad called me on the phone and invited me to go have lunch with him. And he said, I want to know if everything is okay. And the moment he said that, I just unleashed. And it's amazing the things that your father knows. This father and my biological dad sensed that something wasn't right. And I said, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not hearing what I should be hearing. I'm not feeling. And he said, well, if there's doubt, then the answer is no. That's the answer is no. But we have all this going on. We've sent out save the dates. All my friends have bought their dresses. Everybody knows that we're getting ready to get married. He said, the answer should be no. And I had to call this thing off that I didn't want to do because of shame that I was going to feel, and have to explain to people why I was making a different decision than they thought that I should be making. And so, but it was a very pivotal point in my life for me as a young woman to determine that I get to choose. I get to say what is right for me, and I don't have to satisfy everybody else. I have to satisfy myself and satisfy God. And once I did that, it seemed that, everything else began to change. And so that was a learning lesson for me that I have since been able to pass on and talk to other people about and share that experience. Because I think one of the things too, I think as women we have to be better about is sharing our experiences and our failures, because it could help someone else. I've had a friend say, you know what, I watched you go through that. And that enabled me to be able to say, this is not okay. And so I think when you fail, it builds character. It's how you maneuver through that failure is what matters. It's not the act itself. It's how you get up from that, I think.
For sure. Yeah. I agree with, even with, like you said, your dad said, if there is doubt, the answer is no. Yeah. And so many times, what messes us up and what takes us into the shame is so many of us still keep the party going through the doubt and through what the answer should be is no. And it's important for you to know when that's happening so that you have that. And that was one of the reasons why my prayer, as I got to be older, and when I started realizing that I needed to get out of my first marriage,
it was literally a thing of, my prayer was, God, first, I need for you to open a door for me to leave, because I was still stuck in the whole thing of, well, I'm married and I can't just up and leave. I need to have a reason, you know what I'm saying, to leave. That whole, you know, the only way out of marriage is, you know what I'm saying, infidelity or death. And my thing was, since I had moved on none of the other reasons or none of the other times that I could have left, I said, okay, Lord, I need for you to open up a door for me to leave. And when you open the door, because I know the door is going to open, when you open the door, I need for you to give me the strength enough to walk through that door, and no matter what is on the other side, even if it gets hard, because my thing was, I had already had a career working in telecommunications for a company here in Dallas, and I had been there for almost 10 years. And so I had moved up in my company. Like, I started off entry level, had gotten up to management, and had even started working. I was interviewing for another department. I went through every interview and was blazing these interviews. I already had the reputation at work of what I wanted them to see. So it was just like this, having this third interview with the president of the company is going to be a piece of cake, because, you know, older white men love me. I got this. Y'all, let me tell you, in the middle of me going through all of those interviews, when I got to the third interview, they called me the very next day and told me, we just decided to go with another candidate that had more experience, because this particular department, I had no formal training in this department. I had been training people on the floor for years, but as far as like a degree in that particular part of the company, I didn't have it. And I was just like, so when they told me they were going with somebody else, I was so disappointed. But I took it as representation of everything else in my life. I was just like, everything that I go after, I get. I have never entered a talent show that I didn't win. I've never went after a person that I could not get. This is about to take me out of here. So what I said was, they went with another person, so I need to have a backup plan. This is a letdown to me, but I'm going to get myself up in a way that's going, you know what I'm saying, put all of this talk to shame. And so I ended up that following week, it was a random Tuesday, we were getting ready to have spring revival at my church, and I don't know who Bishop was bringing in that night, but anyway, we were having spring revival, and I was supposed to be singing that night. It was 12 o'clock in the day. I had wrote somebody up, right? Put somebody on a paper. And I started cleaning up my desk. And I never did this, but I started cleaning up my desk, putting stuff in his face. And then I told my team, okay, I'm leaving for lunch. I left for lunch, and I ended up on 408. And I worked in Irving. So I realized I'm passing the Potter's house. I'm 5 minutes from the house. Why am I almost at the house? Because again, it's 12 o'clock. I was supposed to be working until 5. Got to the house, and my then husband, when I walked in, he was just like, what you doing here? And I said, I think I quit my job today. And he was just like, wait, what? And I said, no, I think I quit my job today. At the time, I was literally just I did not know why I grabbed my keys and left the job like that. But I got to the house and I said, I think I quit my job. The next morning, my boss, who realized that I did not come back to work, called me at like 5 o'clock in the morning. He was just like, Darian, what is going on? And I said, yo, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I really feel like God allowed me to not get this job because I was never going to actually have the faith to walk out and actually do what I'm supposed to be doing. That was Tuesday, April 2013. That Saturday, I got a call from a friend of mine and was just like, yo, Kirk Franklin is doing this session tonight for Tasha Page Lockhart's record and he needs an alto. And I was just like, oh, okay. Now, I've never been one of those people that was shook by like artists and celebrities. I don't care. Like, I mean, I can sing whatever this is on the record. It's cool. I came in, he asked me to sing a line. He was teaching the line and he asked me to sing a line and he was just like, you want to go over it again? I said, did I do it wrong? And he was just like, no, I'm just like surprised that you got it so quick. I when I tell you I ain't had no downtime since that Saturday in 2013,
Wow.
because I feel like we're pushed into a place to actually make the move. I am one of those people, and I know that there are women out here that are like this, where you get so comfortable in a life that you feel like I said, this hut of dysfunction, you're just living it because it's comfortable. When you ask God to shake stuff up, to make you move, you got, y'all, I'm telling you, the God we serve is so petty at times, because he will shake up your entire world to be like, you said you wanted to get out there and do it, so let's see what you're going to do with it. And I'm telling you, I feel like I've been living, I only asked God to allow me, when it came down to music, because I was so focused on corporate America, I only asked God to allow me to grow up and sing on the praise team at the Potter's house. Wow. That's all I wanted to do, is sing on Josiah. Like, I saw them every Sunday, and I was like, they sound like a record every week. Like, I just want to sing with them. Everything that he's done past 2008, when I started singing on that team, is all overflow. It's all exceedingly above, because I did not ask for any of it. And so now, like she said earlier, we should just know at this point to just ask for the very best that we can, because he'll give good and perfect things. He's not going to give us trash. And I have to remember that so much. It's like, whatever it is that we ask for, he's not going to give his children trash. Right. And that's just it. It's not in his wheelhouse to do.